Welcome to Cake or Death.
Cake, please.
Let them eat cake.
Today, my theme is the queen of cake herself, Marie Antoinette. I want to make some cupcakes that are inspired by her and also maybe inspired just a little bit by the Sophia Coppola 2006 film, Marie Antoinette. So let's get into it. Okay, first step is to make some buttercream. I'm gonna make a lot of buttercream. More butter. Butter! Oh my god, so much butter. 4 sticks of butter. Oof. 8 cups of powdered sugar. That's a lot. Let's put a little bit in. We're bringing some butter and sugar. It's still butter. Tools. You can do it, friend! Instead of adding vanilla to this buttercream, I'm going to add almond and rose water. Putting rose water in frosting seems like something that Marie Antoinette would have appreciated. Seems sophisticated. Who wants to be vanilla anyway? Last step. It's going in. What a mess. When Chris comes down here, he's gonna be that. What the heck? So I've got some liquid in there. I'm gonna add a little splash of milk. Oop, just a really little bit. Onward. Shields up! Centrifugal force! Oh, yeah. That's still very, very stiff. I mean, we want stiff, but we don't want to, like, cramp your hands stiff. And we don't want to soppy wet, because then our flowers will not keep their shape. I think this one a little bit too stiff. Why am I doing a cooking show? I don't know what the f I'm doing. A little bit more milk. Okay, I'm gonna scrape down the sides. I don't want any big blobs of sugar. Okay. I really just want to lick this right now.
Marie Antoinette. The name conjures images of 18th century grandeur, pomp, fashion, and excess. But Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, lost her head for these things and more in the tumultuous final years of the 18th century. Born in Austria, Marie Antoinette married Louis Auguste, Dauphin and future King Louis XVI of France, in May 1770 at age 14. She became Queen of France 4 years later in 1774, just 18 years old. As the Dauphine, Marie Antoinette struggled with court factions and carving out an independent identity, a French identity, for herself.
Now that I've got my loads of buttercream made, I'm going to start mixing my colors. So my inspiration is that wonderful pastel color palette that you see in the 18th century. I really liked in the behind the scenes of the Marie Antoinette Sophia Coppola film how they said that the color palette for the entire film was inspired by macarons from Paris. And even though I'm not making macarons, I love that idea. So I'm gonna mix up some pink, some turquoise, some green for doing the leaves. I'm gonna have a little bit of white. So this part is actually pretty labor intensive. I've got my muscles on. I've got my bowls here. Let's do the pink first, because I think I'm gonna need a lot of that. I'm just gonna portion out a selection of frosting into each bowl. I've got pink here. I just want this to be really, really light, so I'm gonna dip my toothpick in. Just the littlest bit of color in here. And we're gonna get mixing. Turquoise. Let's do some green. Green's a little more challenging because I don't want it to be like green. So I actually temper the green with a bit of black. Okay, that looks pretty good. And of course, I have white. Time to get this frosting in bags. Got my bags here. These are Wilton piping bags, and I've got my selection of tips that I want to use. All right, so the first tip is going to be for our big rose. I'm not going to get it all in because I want to save some for my Russian tip. I'm going to do my Russian tip next. That is this one. This makes a lovely little flower without having to work too hard. It's a very big tip. Spread this around, and then we're going to put white in the middle. Two. Third bag. Gravity. Yeah.
It was through fashion that Marie Antoinette defined herself, exploring ever more extravagant and new styles of dress and coiffure. In the wake of her sartorial adventures, constant changes in dress, millinery, and hairstyling gripped French society and beyond, influencing other European countries and colonies alike. Unfortunately for the Queen, she was the target of endless attacks of every kind, from her moral character to her allegiances. The Queen shunned court etiquette, pursued too modern ideas of dress, slighted aristocrats, and threw lavish parties. The perfect storm of a growing deficit and a bad harvest, among other factors, threw the French people into starving revolt and then organized revolution. Aristocracy, and particularly the monarchy, became targets for their failure to enact real and lasting political and financial reforms.
Here we have our willing victims. I cooked these the other day. I don't really care very much about the cake bases. I will totally take them out of a box, or I had to do these from scratch because
You can't get cake mix during an apocalypse.
I would like to use my Russian tips first because funsies! Now let's do roses.
By October 1789, the royal family was imprisoned in the Tuileries Palace. A poorly planned escape 2 years later only worsened the public opinion. The royal family was caught and returned to the Tuileries for another 2 years before a mob of terrifying aspect stormed the old palace, killing the Swiss guard and sacking the rooms. Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI survived this attack and were moved to the Temple in the Marais. At this point, September 1792, the monarchy was abolished and the governance of the French Republic assumed by the National Convention. The royals lost their status and were soon after charged, tried, and found guilty. Louis XVI was executed by guillotine January 21st, 1793.
I feel like everything in the 18th century was gilded, and so I'm going to gild these cupcakes. Yes, with Egyptian gold luster powder mixed with alcohol, and the only kind of alcohol I have that's clear is Absolute Citron.
Suffering the execution of her husband, friends, and intense uncertainty about the survival of her children, Marie Antoinette was stripped of her name and became only the Widow Capet, and later her humanity, referred to only as prisoner number 280. She was accused of and tried for, among other things, orchestrating orgies, funneling money to Austria, incest, and planning a massacre of the French National Guard. On the morning of October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette dressed in a plain white gown. Her hair was shorn and her hands bound behind her back. She was transported in an open cart to the Place de la Révolution through a jeering crowd. She was guillotined at 12:15 p.m. and her headless body thrown in an unmarked grave. As for the famous saying, "Let them eat cake," there's no evidence to say she ever uttered it. The saying was actually, "Qu'ils mangent de la brioche." Let them eat brioche, not cake. And while we do love a nice vanilla brioche, cupcakes are just more fun. If not, well, completely historically inaccurate. Cake or death? Oh, cake, please. I'm sorry. We're all out of cake. If you're a professional cake decorator and you're watching this video, I'm really sorry. Why am my hand shaking so much? Because your buttercream is like cement.